What's up, everybody? I am so glad to be here, spending some time with you, sharing some grower education once again. This is Rob Smith, your host of the Homegrown Helpers, and this week is no different than any other week, except we just get better and better, because that's what it's all about. Get better at growing, giving you better content. This week, I have Smot Poker. Smot Poker is from Pennsylvania, and you'll hear about Smot's history with cannabis and his particular unique grow style. And then we really get right into a lengthy and in-depth discussion about autoflowering cannabis plants. And, really, we talk in great depth about the autoflowers, but we also talk about finding the grow style that's right for you. And I just like to echo again as we kick things off that this show is about helping you find that style that's right for you. So maybe this is the hobby that you dig into and you learn everything about, or maybe this is the hobby that you want to treat like Smot and, just grow your own cannabis, grow really nice cannabis, but you don't have to perfect this. So there's always that. What else is going on out here? I'd like to make sure that you join our Slack community, which we are having a ton of fun in. I've been on a little vacation. I'm back now, and I want to hang out in the Slack community pretty regularly, and I want you to join me there. So find that link in our Linktree/Growcast bio. You can find all sorts of stuff there. You can find a link to our giveaway. You can find a link to the resources, the resource we're just coming out with from a Growcast episode called 5 Steps to Optimize Your Grow Room. You can find that there. You can find a link to all the listener discounts that we give you. You can find a link to apply to be on the Homegrown Helpers, this show. You can also find a link to start a 7-day trial of mygrowpass.com. And the reason I mention that is we're going to be opening the doors again in about a month. September 23rd to be exact. Jordan and I just decided that. So we wanted to get that out in the world and get you thinking about joining us and taking advantage of the discounts, the giveaways, the premium content, the premium access to us. We're adding new stuff, coming out with ad-free podcast episodes for Blue members. We got all sorts of stuff in the works. And you can find pretty much all of that at linktr.ee/growcast. The only other thing that I want to mention is right now, we're days away from being able to tell you, the audience, about this really, really awesome thing that we have coming up in the middle of September with a former Growcast guest. He's doing it just for us. Can't tell you anything more because I want you to tune in next week, but really big stuff just for our listeners. So tune in and I'll announce it. I'll let you guys know. We're also going to be announcing on Instagram over the weekend. If you don't already follow us there, find us, the Homegrown Helpers. That's pretty much it. So we do have to thank our friends at Buxton Hollow Farm before we get into the amazing episode with Smot Poker. And Buxton Hollow Farm is purveyors and creators of some amazing organic natural products for your garden. They are also a small family-owned business based in Rhode Island and carry quality natural soil amendments such as compost teas, Nourish Coir seed starters, plain or pre-charged biochar, and tailor-made mineral mixes and potting soils for not just your cannabis plants, but for plants of all sizes, shapes, varieties. So their products hold one or more of the following: Clean Green certification, USDA BioPreferred certification, and our hand-mixed order, so you know exactly what you're getting, and they are always the freshest, most biologically active products possible. Head on over to buxtonhollowfarm.com. Use the code GCL10 to save yourself 10% off your entire purchase. Members save 20% and also have a chance to win one of 5 complete product packages every quarter from our friends at Buxton Hollow Farm. Check them out and then enjoy this excellent episode with my new friend, Smot Poker from Pennsylvania. And welcome to another episode of the Homegrown Helpers. I'm here with another Cocoa for Cannabis plant training challenge, or growing challenge, I should, in a more wider scope, participant and forum participant. Welcome to the show, Smot Poker.
Thank you, Rob. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Smot Poker is from the land of prohibition and has some things in his history. So that's why we're rolling with his online name, Smot Poker, and you can find him on Instagram or on the Cocoa for Cannabis forums. Is it just Smot Poker on Instagram, or is there something else there?
It is on Instagram. It is real Smot Poker.
Okay, and just Smot Poker over on the Cocoa for Cannabis forums.
That is correct.
Right on. All right. Well, let's dig into it. You know the typical layout by now. So why don't you start us off with a little bit about yourself and your history with cannabis and how we got to the point where you're comfortable sharing your passion for growing with our audience.
All right. Yeah, I guess like a lot of us, I originally got introduced to cannabis young in high school. And like a lot of teenagers, me and my friends took a bunch of seeds out into the field and tried to grow them. And we were, very minimally successful. And I kind of grew out of it. We, never did that great with it. And then I still smoked for years and years. I've had back surgeries and some other things. So I am a medical cannabis user here in Pennsylvania. And so fast forward to about 5, 6 years ago, we decided to try again. We got soil and came in, tried indoors. We had some problems with light leaks and had some Hermes and different things. So we were thinking about giving up again. We tried outside, and with it being illegal here, you have to sneak into the woods, and it's just so hard to take care of them properly. And you lose them to either thievery or pests, or, I've had deer lay on them. So we just decided to try indoors, and we had some problems with the photo periods that we were doing, and we didn't really realize the light leaks were our problem. So we switched to Autoflowers, and we had so much fun with Autoflowers that we've been growing them since, like I said, for like the past 5 years. And it's been a fun time, great time.
So what about Autoflowers kind of just does it for you compared to regular photo periods?
Well, one thing is my grow space is, I rent an apartment right now. So my grow space is a spare bedroom. And in this spare bedroom, I like to grow. I smoke in here, which I know isn't good for my equipment, but I smoke my weed in here. We like to press buds, press
Mm-hmm.
hash,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a great fun. And with the Autoflowers, honestly, Rob, I just grow right in the middle of the room. If anybody goes to my account, they'll see it's just right in the middle of a 15 by 15 bedroom. So what I do is condition the air rather than have like an exhaust and an intake. I
Yep.
just condition the whole room
Yep.
and get the VPD as close as I can, and we do pretty well. We usually average about 8 ounces in autoflower, so it keep every 90 days you can harvest, and I mean, what's not to love about that?
So do you harvest every 90 days, or do you have plants on you're taking one every 30 or two or one every 15 or something like that?
No, we usually sprout 4 to 6, and we actually follow the grow challenges at Cocoa for Cannabis, so
Okay.
that's pretty much our schedule. And yeah, it works out to be roughly every 90 to 100 days. And then I like to take a break, lick my wounds, and recoup. And then usually within a month, we start back up again.
So you're getting 2 to 3 pounds every 90 to 100 days off 4 to 6 autoflowers.
Yeah, well, we usually average about 2 pounds of grow. We fell a little short this time, and I'll tell you why later on. We got a new light and some other problems that I had. But
Okay.
yeah.
So for everybody out there, I'm just trying to simplify this for any new growers, anybody that's listening that's really concerned about taking those next steps. And it sounds like you're having some incredible success with an extremely simple setup, something where you aren't concerned about light leaks, you're not concerned about presence in your room, and I'd like to get into the IPM protocols later around that, because anybody that's listened to the show, there's been lots of talk about keeping people away from your plants and not going in and spending excessive time around them. So we'll get to that. But It sounds like you're just keeping it incredibly simple, but having incredible success. Am I feeling that right vibe there?
Yeah, I believe you are right.
Cool.
We do like to keep it simple. Using Dr. Coco's regimen makes it very simple too. It can be quite fun, and like you said, you can kind of enjoy your space a little bit and be the lights are on. You can be in there more if you're a helicopter grower when you first start. And yeah, it's great. The autoflowers are a lot of fun, and I think they're good for new growers. There's some challenges to them, I guess, with transitioning nutrients because you don't have an initial flip date. I guess
Mm.
you could you kind of have to watch the plant and decide when it's flowering and transition your nutrients accordingly. And other than that, I mean, you still train them the same. We still train them the same way. We top them. Some of them we top twice, depending on how they're growing when they start flowering. And yeah, they do great with that. A lot of people say do not top autos, and nobody really says that anymore, especially around cocoa for cannabis. It's a big misnomer. It's still a cannabis plant. It reacts the same way. The auxins are still in the main meristem, and when you cut it, it stops that from happening and spreads it out to the other colas, and it works great. Then you get more light on your plant that way, and we love it.
Yeah, I think topping has kind of gone by the wayside as far as not doing it on autoflowers, but topping takes time to recover. When was the last time that you experimented with a plant or two not topping and just training, or not topping and training and just letting the autoflower grow naturally, and compared, maybe it's growth cycle, maybe it's growth vigor, and not just yield, and kind of compared what the plants did?
Yes, actually, I have grown them straight up. Before I found cocoa for cannabis and everything, we just mainly did a lot of low stress training, bending them over.
Hmm.
Some of them we would just let them grow like a Christmas tree, and we had decent results. But with an autoflower, it's just like any other cannabis plant. You only want to top it if it's growing vigorously. And I would have to disagree with the slowing down of a plant after it's topped. If I think a lot of that comes from people topping too early and they don't have the right volume of roots under the plant to handle the stress of a topping, I guess.
Okay.
So I believe when we cut ours, we don't see much slow in growth, if any at all, really. I mean, if you checked out the journals, you'll see after they top, they just keep climbing and they actually seem to, I don't know, they grow great after we top.
So you mentioned people checking out the journals. Where can people check out these journals of yours?
Oh, they can go to cocoforcannabis.com and look up Smot Poker and you'll see the autoflowers growing. We're going to have a couple more in this new challenge where we're going to try to do our first true manifold, and we're going to run a couple in a toppers group. So we're going to see if we pick the right strains for the right amount of veg time. Some of our autos will veg just 20 days. Some of them seem to veg for maybe 40, 45 days. So it can be tricky, on cutting them twice because once they get to a certain stage, it is detrimental, to start cutting it, in my opinion.
So that brings up a really good question that I kind of had written down here, and we'll just kind of transition fully into this autoflower conversation since we've talked about the topping, we've talked about the training, and you kind of mentioned strain selection, and that's one of the more frustrating things that I hear people talking about when it comes to autoflowers, and I mean you can't clone them, so if you find that strain that's, geez, it only veg for 20 days and then it flipped, and it was very easily trained and really big buds, you're not always going to get that same phenotype expression out of the next time you grow strains, right?
Oh no, that's definitely correct. Well, we will buy a 5 pack of seeds. I mostly buy all my seeds from one company, and I don't know if it's okay to say.
Yeah, of
Yeah,
course.
it's msnl.com. I believe it's, if you look it up, it's marijuanaseeds.nl.com. But they have great autoflower strains. They've had the same domain name since '98. So we've had great success with them, and we stick with them. But I've realized, I'm sure you've heard a million times and experienced yourself, the breeders never really say correctly. They'll tell you it's 60 days from seed to finish, and that's not true. So it just kind of comes with the territory after you screw a few of them up. You watch them and you see how it goes, and that's all part of it, is watching the plant develop and see, is it growing vigorously? Then you can make that assessment.
But how can you tell, if you have 5 different seeds from a pack and you're growing them out, all of them in one run, what's the variance that you've seen? And I guess I want to get to the variance of, you'd mentioned the right time to flip and switch your nutrient feedings. So from veg to more of a, PK rich feeding schedule. So how do you determine when to make that flip? Because obviously you want to make that flip before you actually see flower, pistils on your plants.
We just watch for the pistils to start to develop. And once they start to shoot their hairs out, the little pistils come out of the bract. You can start to see your plant developing into flower. And that's when we transition our newts. Now, if you're following most schedules, they will be set up for photos. And you'll have to maybe cut off some of the veg time and do your transition a little earlier. But other than that, it doesn't really change anything else. And as far as growing, we don't like the monocrop. Like I said, we're trying to do it for fun. So we like to have different jars of different stuff.
Right.
But I will grow all 5 seeds from one pack and see different expressions. Some will stay shorter. Some will yield a lot more. Now, I'm sure some of this could be my fault too, as far as, because a lot of times I'll mix one batch of nutrients for 4 different plants that are the same age, 4 different strains. So they all get the same thing. And that's just me not wanting to mix, because one might be 10 days behind. And a lot of times I will just feed them all the same, and they still do well. But, that's something that I need to dial in that I think is important.
Okay. So yeah, that's kind of where I was getting to, is if you're growing 5 packs or 5 seeds from a pack, even if you're growing them out over different times, how much detailed tracking are you doing, and how much adjusting are you doing? If you're growing a, AFGUI auto now, and you notice that on day 20 of veg, quote unquote veg, in an autoflower,
right?
You're starting seeing pistils. Are you writing that down so that the next time you're growing that, are you starting to give it flower nutrients on day 18 to prep it for that transition?
Yeah, that's not something that I've ever really done, Rob, was to keep that detailed of a record.
Okay.
I know a lot of people do, and I probably should, but I try to fit growing into my life versus the other way around.
Sure. And that's really key point that you brought up. And I kind of went there in my head earlier on, and keeping it simple and having success is there's lots of ways to do this. And some people don't want to get into growing because you can get lost down the rabbit hole, right?
You sure can. I fought a long time, Rob, to get to I fought against getting pH pens. I'm thinking I didn't need it, and then the EC pen came up, and I'm like, I don't really want to do that. That seems like so much more work.
Right.
I thought it would just be put them in the soil and let them go. And since we're indoors, things will go a lot better. But it wasn't that easy. But we do have a simple setup, and you mentioned it. I'd like to tell you how we set our things up and what we do. And
Totally. But I don't want to lose this. I think it's important because it's like a lot of other hobbies. You can do it to any extent that you want, and the more time and effort you put in,
right,
will give you better results, but not exponential better results. Like, you can get better, but it's not going to be like, if I put in 10,000 hours, like, it's going to be 10,000 times better cannabis. Like, there's a limit.
Right.
And once you reach that happy point where it sounds like you are with your grow and your results, then do you and live your life. It doesn't have to consume you, even though it seems that growing cannabis does consume a lot of people, that it, with that passion, it doesn't have to consume you.
Yeah, I must admit, it is the longer I go, the more I get into. Since I found Dr. Coco and the Coco for cannabis, and I've learned about lights and so many different things. And now I'm starting to learn why. Why does a high EC hurt my plant? Why
Mm-hmm.
does topping? Why does it make your plant grow? But and that's the inquisitive side to me, is I need to know, why is this happening? So I kind of am going down, I guess, the rabbit hole.
You're falling down it now.
Yeah, because they were nice enough to invite me into the steering committee and help put together the grow challenges, and I accepted, and it's been great time, a lot of fun. So lately I have been going down, and now I'm contemplating getting a couple tents for this room and using it as a lung room and running
Oh man,
different
moving on
stuff.
up.
So yeah, so I guess I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth there. So I am falling down the rabbit hole.
But you don't have to. You don't have to. And
No.
I mean, you've been doing this for many years with many successful harvests under your belt, and you don't have to. And the thing that, when I started growing, it wasn't this simple. There weren't companies out there that were making it this simple. It was still complicated. But now you can buy a perfectly mixed bag of dirt and pour water that you don't even need to pH, and put an autoflower in a wide open room that you're going to tell us about, and in 100 days get 8 ounces off of it.
Yeah.
And without doing anything,
How can
anything
that
else.
not, if you're a true cannabis fan and a connoisseur, how can that not be fun?
Right. Like, if you literally don't have any other time to do anything like that,
Yeah.
that right there was probably an hour's worth of work, and giving it water for 5 minutes every other day. If, like, as simple as you want to get it, and still get decent results. Hey guys, when we come back, we're going to hear about Smot Poker's specific grow setup and why open air growing works for him. What's open air growing? Well, stay tuned right after this message from our friends at Dino Myco. And what is Dino Myco? Well, they are the newest kids on the block with the endomycorrhizal fungi at some of the highest concentrations. And let me tell you, our team loves it. Our members have loved it. We did this giveaway. We gave away, like 100 free samples of like a good sized bag, 100-gram bag at Dino Myco, and everybody's come back to us, said they love it. So I guess the big thing is that Dino Myco will help your plants to absorb more nutrients and water, resulting in higher yields and healthier plants. Because who doesn't want that, right? In commercial trials, Dino Myco has exhibited 20 to 30% yield increases without changing anything else in the growing protocol. Amazing stuff. So use the code GROWCAST to save yourself 10%. Go to dynomyco.com. Click this shop now. Go to the Amazon store. It's right there. It's one of the links right underneath the map. Use the code. Works on Amazon. I've tried it. I've tested it. It works. Members save 25% off the 2 larger sizes on that site. So if you're thinking about it, look at that. It's a direct savings that you're going to use this product time after time after time. So DYNOMYCO, use the code GROWCAST. Scoop that savings. Now let's get back and hear about this open air growing and why it might be the right style for you.
All right. So what I have is a 15 by 15 bedroom. It's got 8.5-foot ceilings, I believe. And I taped off a section in the middle. It's about 5 by 5. I used to run 1,000-watt high pressure sodium in this room, and it was great in the winter. Kept it perfect. I didn't have to add any heat. So this past grow is my very first grow with I'm using a Fluence Spider 2X. It's 325 watts. It's great light. And so what we do is we start out our seeds, we germinate them. It's like everybody else on a mat. We soak them for 12 hours, and then we put them right into a paper towel, whether they've cracked open or not. And as soon as we get a tail, it's about a 1/4 inch, we put them in solo cups. And what we use for our pot ups are solo cups, 1-gallon plastic, and 3-gallon fabric pots with cocoa. So we have a small rack system set up in the middle. It's like I guess any garage rack system, or a baker's rack, I guess you could call it.
Yep.
It's about 5 inches off the floor. I slide pans under them, and I set my 4 plants on there. And what we use is cocoa tech from General Hydroponics. We use their cocoa. We mix it 70-30 with perlite, and we water with high frequency fertigation, which is nutrients every time. And with the pans underneath, you can pull them out, test your water, get rid of it easy. No shop vacs. It's real easy. I walk right across the hall to a bathroom and get rid of them. In the summertime, we dump our runoff outside in the garden. But other than that, that's about it. We grow right in the middle of the room. We run the light for 20 hours a day. We start them under a T5, and then we switch to the big light. Now, the past grow we've had with COVID hitting, we was having problems getting materials, so we reused our cocoa, and I did not buffer it correctly, and therefore it stunted my plants a little bit.
Oh, okay. So let's talk about that lesson learned there.
Yeah.
Like, how do you typically buffer? Do you buffer? Do you buy buffered cocoa? And then tell our audience why you would have to buffer cocoa in between runs and why you can't use it.
So we buy ours in dry block, and we rehydrate it. Any buffered cocoa, in my opinion, should be rebuffered, because I've seen so many people have problems with pre-buffered mixes, and their biggest problem is a CalMag deficiency. So what we do is we rehydrate it, and then we sift it through a normal kitchen colander, and we spray it, and it gets all the little tiny dust particles out. The little particles don't hold enough oxygen, and they're not really advantageous to have in your mix. So we try to rinse those out. Then we put them in bags in our fabric pots, and we soak them in CalMag water at 7.5 milliliters per gallon, and that will satiate the cocoa's need for CalMag. I'm not a scientist, Rob, but I know that there's like a cation exchange, I guess, in the cocoa, where you have to feed the cocoa before your plant can get the CalMag, I guess. So there's like a cation exchange or a cation exchange. Whenever you do that, your cocoa will take the calcium but release potassium. And so therefore, when you're done buffering, you need to rinse it and rinse the EC down really low. That way, when you start your seedlings, it'll be below what will hurt them. In my case, I didn't rinse it good enough, and I believe it was holding a lot of like nitrates, I guess you could call them, or whatever, from the last grow, and probably a lot of bloom newts still left in there, and it was my fault.
So we did a really good Growcast episode with Mark from Gorilla Boost. I think it's been archived by now, but he talked about anybody that's not buffering their cocoa and doing the exact process that you talked about whenever they get in any cocoa. So they get cocoa in straight and, from pallets or trailer loads from Malaysia, I think it is. And they actually bought their own factory and
Wow.
are buffering, fresh buffering all of this and then shipping directly. So it's not repackaged. It's like open air, like in the buffering solution, like fresh delivered to you. Some crazy processes for these big cultivation facilities that are doing cocoa. So, but that's why an awful lot of people don't reuse their cocoa, because it's even harder to buffer it after actually using it and not just having it soaked and cleansed. So
that same principle is a reason that we would never recommend anybody to use, like, this is my personal opinion, an auto pot system or any recirculating system where your water would pass through the cocoa.
Mm-hmm.
Because once that happens, like I said before, it takes calcium and releases potassium. So once your water drips out the bottom, that's the reason you can't use it, because your nutrient element ratio is now thrown off by having that exchange. And it's no longer, the more you use auto pots, the more problems you'll have recirculating your feed. Drain to waste is how we do it.
Yeah. Did I miss what kind of nutrient brand you're using?
No, maybe I didn't say. We're using General Hydroponics.
Okay.
floor trio, I guess it is, the
Sure.
micro, grow, and bloom, and then we have some additives that we put in.
What kind of additives? What are you throwing in there?
We're using Armor Psi, and we use CalMag, obviously, micro, grow, and bloom, and we use liquid cool bloom, diamond nectar, and for a surfactant we use Yucca. SM90 is no longer available, so Yucca is a good replacement.
There you go. Right on. Yucca is definitely the chosen one at this point in time for a surfactant. So what else haven't we covered? So one thing that I did want to circle back around. So you generally will flip your into flowering nutrients. Do you always go 20 days? Do you always go 30 days? How have you determined that? And what kind of, like, do you do it, you do it the same day for the entire run that you're doing? Do you alter that between runs, or do you the same day every run? Kind of walk us through that. Help the audience decide
Okay.
what to do.
Well, what we do is, when we top our plants, we watch them, and if they start to flower, which you have to watch where your nodes are, you'll see, like I said, your bracts will come out, and then they'll start to shoot pistils, and that's pretty much telling you that your plant's starting to go into flower. It'll change, and at that point is when we start to transition our newts. Now, like I said before, I try to keep it as simple as I can. So I may have one plant that is going to be, maybe it's 6-10 days, I'm figuring, away from doing its transition. One that should have been done maybe 3 days ago, I started this day, and I know that's not good advice for somebody. I guess if monocropping would be the way to go, if you want to do it all, but that's what we watch for. We watch for the plant to start flowering. You'll see the bracts on your nodes will start to shoot pistils, and you will know exactly when to stop topping, and you'll know exactly when to transition your newts at that point. And it's not easy to transition, and that's something we miss a lot. And if you do miss it too bad, you could end up with problems. Like you don't want to be giving one plant a lot of no cool bloom when it's or when it's in bloom, and another one. So you kind of want to keep your plants. I try to get all my seeds to go. So with Autoflowers, I'd rather throw one or two away than to try and stagger them by one or two not popping, if that makes sense, when I'm germinating. And that way they all stay the same age. And but yeah, we might have some that are different days, and it does, Rob. When we get towards the end, I'll have plants that are really finishing up quick, and I'll switch them to our late bloom nutrients when I'll have another plant still on mid bloom, based on how the hairs are curling in, how the trichomes look under our microscope, just basically watching the whole plant and figuring out, when is a good time to switch the nutrients in the mid bloom, late bloom. So there is times where we do have to mix separate newts, and it is tricky sometimes to figure out exactly when to top, or when to stop topping, I should say. But it's something that you have fun, you experiment with it, see how it reacts, and go from there.
See, one of the reasons that I started this project when it started with Homegrown Journals was to kind of prove out whether or not there were specific ways to do specific tasks when it came to growing cannabis that significantly influenced the results that a grower would experience. And what I hoped to do, and I am doing, is proving that there are very few things that you should probably do this specific way. And then there are a bunch of things that are kind of ambiguous and can provide or have a wide range of inputs and still produce a very high quality cannabis. Not the best, but you don't need to win homegrown awards or grow off challenges in order to have really good cannabis and provide yourself with medicine.
I agree. I think there's some things, like you mentioned it dead on. Some things are not set in stone, and I think other things are. Like PPF on your lighter, you can't have it too close, no matter what cannabis plant you're doing. Or right. If you run your EC too high, no matter what cannabis plant you have, it's going to hurt it. So But then, like you're saying, with topping and other things, it's something that you just have to kind of watch your plant and see how things do. And
Yeah, I just want to encourage everybody out there that like you got to find what works for you, and you found that what works for you. What would
I
work
believe we
for
have.
what would work for me in your situation is keeping a journal of, starting a pack of 5 or 10 seeds, keeping a journal, and by the time I get to the end of that pack, like I've got that strain dialed in for the most part. Autos are a little bit harder to dial in, but for the most part, I've got that dialed in so that I know what I'm looking for, when to flip, when to top, how aggressively I can top and manipulate and kind of just work that plan, how many days it's probably going to be. But that's
I think you've just set up a challenge for me. So I'll say challenge accepted. Now you got my wheels turning, Rob. I'm thinking I could really be putting this down on paper and helping a lot of people out if I can get this right, So maybe you spawned an idea here. Further down the rabbit hole I go.
Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard, but when I started Homegrown Journals, it was supposed to be recruiting growers to complete one grow with a journal. We'd post the journal, we'd post the details of the entire grow, and then we'd have the conversation. I could kind of pick apart and be like, so why'd you do this? What made you change here? What were you seeing with the plant here that made you do this type of thing? And what you
That's
just said,
idea.
what you just said kind of makes me wonder, why don't breeders, and I guess specifically autoflower breeders, kind of encourage this to be able to say, on this strain, 70% of people saw that it flipped a flower at 23 days and finished at 67 days. And kind of break it down like that. And I don't know if it's a breeder responsibility, but I think that would be something that would be cool to see for autoflower growers like you. Like, oh, in this catalog, like this 70% of the time finishes below 65 days, and this strain 60% of the time finishes between 75 and 85 days. Would that be helpful to you as a grower?
It would definitely be helpful if you could get real statistics on your seeds. I'm assuming if they're stable enough genetics, you could get some kind of consistent data on it by doing what you're saying, and that's a great idea. That's a wonderful idea. I'm gonna have to try that.
So that's just me. I didn't want to. I love challenging my guests, so I'm glad the challenge was accepted. So let's finish up with just a couple of quick hitting topics. I want to know: do you up pot your autoflowers at any point in time?
Yes.
Okay.
I was taught by Dr. Coco himself why it's so important to up pot was, I guess when your plant is in a container, it will shoot roots to the bottom and to the sides and find it, and then it will start to volumize the rest of the media. And this is how I understand it. So hopefully, if someone out there is a scientist, they're not saying he's wrong, he's saying the wrong word. But that's how I vision it in my head. And so when you take that plant from the solo cup, which is what we do, then we go to 1 gallon. And when you go to the 1 gallon, now your roots will do that same thing. They'll volumize the whole media by going to the bottom and the sides. And then you go to your last pot. And if you can picture that in your head, holding those 3 pots up in a row and it volumizing each one, you can see how you will have no voids in your medium for airspace. More roots, more fruits. Everybody's heard that. So that's our pot up strategy. And that should be for any horticulture, from what I understand. It's like horticulture 101 is to put a proper size plant into a proper pot for maximum results.
So when do you decide to up pot? Is that right before your flower transition? Like what impacts that decision?
We like to, obviously we want to have all of our potting up done before it starts to flower. Now, I can't say I've hit that mark every time, so we try to do that. So what we try to do is watch the plant. In our solo cup, we try to watch the seed. Once the plant usually reaches the edges, it's usually only about, we put our seed straight from the paper towel into the cup. We don't use Jiffy pellets or anything. And it usually is in there for about 10, 12 days. That's it. And it comes right out and goes right into the 1 gallon pot. It's probably in that pot for another 10 or 12 days. And it's right into the last one. And that puts us right about the 20, 24 day mark. Usually the plant will be topped in the second pot first. That's the first topping will happen in the second pot. And you kind of want to stagger those events. You don't want to pot up the very day or the next day after you've popped. So it's important to kind of try and get all those parameters lined up on your timeline to, make sure you don't run into flowering time when you're pot ups.
So would you say that scheduling is one of the more difficult things or difficult differences between autoflowers and photo periods?
Yes, I would say that. That's dead on. It's timing and
I guess if yield is important to you, right? Like
yes,
autoflowers is one of those like you don't have to think about the timing unless right.
Yeah, I see a lot of guys like on different forums and they're cutting their autoflowers after they're already in flower, trying to train them,
right?
And it just seems to hurt their yields a lot.
Well, that kind of brings me to, do you do any other stressing techniques? We do 2 toppings, some light training. Do you do any defoliation, anything like that to kind of inhibit or induce some stress on the plant?
The old defoliation, everybody has that that's like one of the biggest arguments, isn't it? We do the toppings and we do train the plants with, I use rebar tying wire. I'm in the construction industry, so I use rebar tying wire. It's nice and stiff, and I just bend a hook and push it right down into my medium. And lately, the last couple grows, we bought bamboo sticks because we used to tie our buds to the ceiling when they get real heavy with kite string. And so now we changed. But as far as defoliation, no, we don't do it. I've been taught something along over at Cocoa for Cannabis. It's hashtag leave the leaves. And the way it's explained to me, Rob, I'm just going to parrot to you what I've been told. And photosynthesis happens in your leaves. So I see a lot of people defoliating strictly on trying to get a bigger yield. They'll tell you I'm getting light to my bud sites. Well, again, I'm parroting what I've been told is that the cells that create photosynthesis are very few in the buds. So if you're just defoliating all your fan leaves and stripping it down for that, you're actually taking away from your plant because you're cutting out the things that are creating photosynthesis and therefore fueling plant growth. So we do defoliate, but not for that reason. And I would call it more of pruning. We take leaves if they're laying on each other, obviously, that's not good. We like to lollipop the lower part and get the airflow through there to keep, whatever, gnats away and things of that nature, just to keep the air moving. And as far as any other, we like to cut some of the lower nodes because they just, especially if you're trying to create like 8 nice colas, we'll try to cut some lower nodes. Training is one of the things that I plan on learning a lot in this next grow challenge, watching other people and working along with them.
Right on. And last question on autoflowers. What's your preferred light cycle? Are you 18, 20, 24?
I start mine on 24 hours under the T5s for about the first 2 weeks. And then I put them on a 20 and 4 schedule. I do that mainly just to keep the warmth around them and everything. It's not for any other reason than that, just to keep them warm. I have a heat mat, but it still seems to work pretty good to leave them under there for 2 weeks roughly, or the first, after the first pot up, we'll leave them under the T5s for a little while and let them get their feet back under them before we introduce them to the bigger light.
Right on. Right on. So I just have one more question, then we'll wrap things up and get you out of here for the evening. What's one item that must remain in the garden besides you and the cannabis plant in order for you to be successful?
I think the biggest, that's a tough one. I would have to go with my lights. You have to have a good light. As much as I've learned about light metrics lately, I feel like you could have the greatest setup in the world, use the best perfect mixing newts and everything else, but without the proper photons hitting your plant, it's not gonna yield. The photons are what feeds your plant, as you know, Rob. A lot of the nutrient lines, right, feed on their labels, and I've been taught that nutrients are just there to pretty much like support the plant while it photosynthesizes. And that's what feeds your growth. So it would have to be my light. A good light, I think, is very key. And genetics as well. Good genetics, if you're going to, it's just the same thing with genetics. If you're growing, you can have the best light in the world, but if you got shitty seeds or shitty clones or whatever you're going to do, it's never going to really produce.
Well, you have been trained well. That's exactly the answer that Dr. Coco provided in the interview that aired on Monday.
I was parroting information that I've heard over and over and over, but it makes sense, Rob. It does. I mean, when things are explained to me, why does my plant grow like that when I top it? Why is it good for me to have the correct PPFD or, and why things are the way they are? And I mean, it works. It works. A lot of people come through there and have great success after. I wish I had everybody that was ever told me, hey, thanks for recommending this site, man. It's great. You helped me so much. Everybody's been so great. And it's wonderful.
Well, I've asked this question for almost 2 years of doing podcasts now. And, we all know that any plant needs light, water, and CO2. And it's funny, the very few amount of people that have answered any one of the 3 essentials that a plant absolutely needs. So I always assumed as we'd add things into the excluded list, like besides you, the cannabis plant, air, light, and water.
Okay.
What do you need?
Yeah.
But no, I don't want you to change your answer because we're working to that point, and everybody needs to know that that lights are critical to your plant success, because we get asked all the time, how can I grow cheaply? And we always say you can grow really cheaply, but invest in a light. Like if you're going to invest in one thing, invest in your light.
I agree.
So you did not disappoint with that answer, my friend. The last thing is people can find you at Smot Poker, and it was Real Smot Poker on Instagram. But do you have any last words of wisdom, last bits of advice that you'd like to pass on before we wrap things up?
Not really. I think try to limit where you get your information from so you don't hurt I think a lot of people will get bad information and they just get turned off of growing for that reason. So I think that, and have fun with it. It's got to be fun, man. If it's so stressful to you all the time, you need to change what you're doing. It should be fun, in my opinion. I'm not doing this for a business. This is just a homegrown, for my own personal medicine. And I try to make it fun, and it is.
Cool. Well, thank you so very much for joining me. And audience, make sure that you give us a rating or review on whatever podcast platform you listen to. And if you can't, just tell a friend. And that's really, that word of mouth really goes a long way. And you do have a couple more days after this goes live to join the Plant Training Grow Challenge over at Coco for Cannabis. And I'm going to wrap it up. I just got a confirmation email that Dr. Coco is going to be hanging out in our Slack channel at 3 p.m. Eastern time every Sunday. So to go with his Growcast episodes, his Homegrown Helper episodes, to answer those questions. So Smot, I'm going to put you on the spot. Would you like to join and be in the Slack community at Sunday afternoon, hanging out with Dr. Coco and our community there?
Oh, I'd love to. I think that'd be a great time.
Cool.
And I really appreciate that offer.
Awesome. So 3 p.m., this is going live this week. So 3 p.m., the 23rd, Dr. Coco and Smot Poker are going to be there chatting up about the most recent episodes. And just make sure you can join the Slack community by hitting the linktree.growcast, or I hate saying this address, linktr.ee/growcast. The link's in our Instagram bio. You can find it pretty much anywhere you go. So that's it. Thank you so much for your time today, Smot Poker from Pennsylvania, and we'll catch you next time.
Thank you, Rob.